and it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome everyone to episode 53 of the Tristan on Sports Show Toss. It is your main man, T-Squared, Tristan Thomas, your friendly neighborhood. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Episode 53. This week on Toss, we gotta talk to Green Bay Packers. Ooh, mudhole stomping. We gotta talk about Giannis leaving the Bucks. What? Stop it. In the Toss Sweep, we talk about the World Series, and we talk about the first quarter of the NFL season being over. My surprises and thoughts on that, but you know how we get things started. You know how we do things here on the Tristan on Sports Show Toss. We get things started with the state of the state, and we have to talk about that Green Bay Packers ass whooping. There's no other way to put it. Excuse my French, but they got a mud hole stomping, a dog walking, a molly whopping, whatever you want to classify it as. That's what they got. And it was shocking. It was just absolutely shocking. I would have never thought that would be how they got their first loss. I mean, there was just, I mean, first of all, we got to hit them with this. I mean, it's just, it's only white. It's only right. I mean, they took a massive L on the road, big time game. I mean, you could really make the argument this was their real first big time opponent they were facing. You know, you beat the Vikings, who are 1-5. 1-5. Wow. I mean, you beat the Lions. I mean, you beat the Falcons. I mean, you really haven't beaten a who's who in the NFL quite yet. And then you come up against this 3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneer squad, whose defense is number 2 in total defense in the NFL. And I said it on Quick Toss, on Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. They had the number 2 total defense in the NFL. We're talking about the Buccaneers. I said, something's going to give. Either that number 2 total defense is going to step up, or that number 1 offense for the Green Bay Packers was going to show out. But something had to give. It could not be both. And that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense stepped up. Now, it got off to a good start. You're talking 10-0. Packers moving the ball, pretty well. But then came the pick 6. And this was Aaron Rodgers' first interception of the season. And I tweeted at the 2-0 double, hey, if you're going to have your first pick of the season, you might as well make it a big one. But let's not do that again, please. Pick 6, 10-7 ball game. And to put this in perspective, that was Aaron Rodgers' it was only his 3rd pick 6 of his entire career. Let me say that again and say it a little bit more clearly. That was Aaron Rodgers' 3rd pick 6 of his entire career. To put that into perspective, Tom Brady has 4 pick 6s in his last 7 games. That is how efficient Rodgers is. That is how greatly he takes care of the football. When you have somebody that takes care of the football, you get all those possessions, you don't waste them, and you go out there, you score a lot of points, and he's been able to do that throughout his career. Okay, so they got the pick 6. It's a 10-7 ball game. Okay, you guys were moving the ball against this defense. You feel pretty good. You thought they were going to go and get those points back. And then the second pick happened. Now, you can't put this one on Aaron Rodgers. He's going for a slant route to Devontae Adams. They've done this in their sleep. Easy money, should pick up the first down, but you have to give credit to Tampa Bay's defense. The DB made an excellent play on the football, tipped it. They picked it. They were able to go down and score. That started the 38-0 avalanche. Actually, the pick 6 actually is what started the 38 0-0 Avalanche. Tampa Bay scored 38 unanswered points. The Packers would not score again all game. And I did not think I would see that. You go from scoring 40 points per game to only scoring 10 points against Tampa Bay. Rodgers, there was nothing to speak of very, very well of him. I mean, he really wasn't protected very well. Bakhtiari going down in that game. Luckily, he doesn't appear to have anything serious with that chest injury. You feared it might have been a biceps injury or something much worse, but it wasn't. It appears that it's not serious. You hope to get him back soon. You didn't have Tyler Ervin, Swervin Irvin, the running back, and that really affected what Matt LaFleur likes to do on offense, which is employ that 3-back set in which he puts a lot of those guys, especially Irvin, in motion, and it confuses the defense. They didn't have that ability to do that this week. So he was a big loss. It was a much bigger loss than people thought it would be. You know, that motion is very important to what the Packers try to do. And Tyler Ervin is a really big part of that. There was nothing positive to speak of in the run game. Again, the lines for the Packers, both offensive line and the defensive line, were just absolutely dominated at the line of scrimmage by Tampa. They were absolutely dominated. And we'll get to that in a second. But you're talking Aaron Jones, 10 carries for 15 yards. There was nothing positive to take from this game whatsoever. There was not one single solitary positive in this game. And if anything, it kind of annoyed me by the fact that they continued to trot Aaron Rodgers out there in a game that was over. It was over. There was no reason to put him out there in that type of danger when your line is getting dominated at the line of scrimmage, missing your stalwart lineman who protects Rodgers' backside. There's no reason to subject him to that kind of punishment and risk him for the rest of the season. But they did. Luckily, he didn't come out with any kind of injury. But there was nothing positive to speak of in this game. There really wasn't. If anything, you have to give credit to Tampa Bay. They came in prepared. They had just came in from facing a tough defense and what's really becoming a tough team in Chicago. We'll see, how tough they are if this is going to be able to continue. Right now, they're sitting a half game ahead of you for first in the NFC North. I almost said NFC Central. See, I talked about that on Quick Toss this week too. But they came in really prepared, and you have to give them all the credit in the world. You have to give them all the credit in the world for that. The only thing you can do in games like this is to get better from it. But I understand where the PTSD comes in for a lot of Packers fans out there and for a lot of people that cover them, just like myself. The PTSD comes in from 2019. And again, I wrote about this in the Toss blog, tossnationmedia.com. They were just dominated at the line of scrimmage on both the offensive line and the defensive line. And it was really reminiscent of those 3 clunking performances. And we're talking regular season and playoffs. You talk about 2 of them against the Niners, who went on to be NFC champions and lost in the Super Bowl, and against the Los Angeles Chargers, where they just were absolutely manhandled at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. So you get those flashbacks when you watch something like this. And you say, well, what exactly have they done to really address this? And I said it before. I said it before the season started. I don't think they've done enough to address the run defense. I don't know how much work they've done and how many acquisitions they've made to really beef up or get more attitude at the line so they don't get manhandled and dominated like that in these big games. I personally felt they didn't do enough. And here we are, week 6, big game. national television. It's the late game. It's the game of the week. Everybody's pretty much watching you. There's a small segment of the country that's watching the other game, but for the most part, everybody's watching you. And you get dominated. And it brings back those flashbacks. It brings back those questions. Now, you hope this was just an anomaly. And this kind of falls into the, I want to call it an alarming trend because it's only been 2 years, but it is a trend nonetheless. It kind of falls into the trend of bye weeks in the regular season under Matt LaFleur. Now, Matt LaFleur is 17-4 as head coach in the regular season of the Green Bay Packers. Phenomenal record. But he's 0-2 coming out of the bye week. And they've been outscored by a lot of points. I believe they've only scored 17 points. Or, 18 points. In 2 games that he's coached this team after a bye week. I mean, that's depressing. And it's kind of alarming. Again, it's 2 seasons, but it is a trend. Now, on the flip side of that coin, after a loss, and they've now had 4 in the Matt LaFleur era in the regular season, they've won every single game after a loss. So they don't hang their heads. They don't stay in the doldrums. They don't let this snowball becoming a losing streak. They go back, they learn, they move forward. And that's exactly what I said they had to do. Again, in the Toss blog, they sit down, you learn from it, you move forward. But what I want to see is applied knowledge, because you're going to come up against teams that have stout lines, and you're going to have to go and dominate those guys. You can't sit there and be dominated. You have to impose your will on them, not allow them to punk you. So I'm going to wait for that applied knowledge. Now, you're going into Houston. You're going up against the Texans. That is your next game on Sunday. You're going up against a premier quarterback in the league, in Deshaun Watson. You're going up against a team that everybody thought was going to be a playoff factor, and they are not. It's actually quite surprising that they're this bad. Although their play at times would not suggest that they are this team with this kind of a record, but they are. They're a losing team, probably not going to do much this season. But there's a lot of season left. They can go on an incredible run, and we're all wrong about it. But to this point, it doesn't look like they're going to do much. But you're going to be tested a little bit with this athleticism, the receivers they have. Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, who's been playing much better over the past few weeks. David Johnson is still there at running back. I mean, they got a few playmakers there. You know, J.J. Watt's still on the defensive line over there. He's still doing the damn thing. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a test. Probably not as big as the Buccaneers test, but you're still going to be tested. I believe this is a game they should win. But will they win it? Will they win it? Well, I'll have that prediction for you on Quick Toss. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. Packers 4-1. Thoroughly dominated. Learn and move on. Continuing state of the state here on Toss. The Milwaukee Bucks. Now they are in their off season, and if you're looking at social media, you know that Giannis went live on his Facebook at the airport. He's back home in Greece with his family. And they were at the airport, you know, with his mom, going to pick up his brother, NBA champion. Met him at the airport, man, and just the love that he showed for his brother, welcoming him home, as the champion that he now is. And you got all the trolls out there saying, "Oh man, that dude didn't get a lick of time. He didn't play 1 second in the NBA Finals, but yet here he is with the ring." Well, y'all ain't saying anything about Deion Waiters, and Deion Waiters was going to get a ring no matter who won, because he was a member of the Miami Heat, and then he was a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. So he had a ring coming no matter what. He didn't have a dog in the race. He was going to get a ring. But the love that he shows for his family and for his brothers, and that really made me smile. That really made my heart smile. And it really goes to show you how genuine he is. And then he talks about how hungry he is. He's happy that his brother's an NBA champion, but now he wants to go and experience the same thing. And he said multiple times that he wants to be in Milwaukee. He wants to win in Milwaukee. He wants to bring a championship to Milwaukee. He loves Milwaukee. He wants to be here. He wants to raise his son here. He wants to be in Milwaukee. But despite him being genuine, but despite him being that competitive guy that says, some people want to run away from it, but I go through the wall. You have a certain segment of the media, predominantly the national media, who continue to want this, to create this narrative, the same narrative that they try to create, that somehow, some way, LeBron James had the MVP season over Giannis, which we all know. Anybody who has any real basketball sense knows that wasn't the truth. They want to continue to push this narrative and create this narrative that, oh, well, he's going to have to go somewhere else other than Milwaukee to win a championship. Oh, he's eligible for an extension this offseason. If he doesn't sign it, that means he's 1 foot out the door. That means you got to get something from him. And I heard Stephen A. Smith say that. He said he would trade Giannis because you can't let him go for nothing. If you go on the Toss Facebook page and you see my response to him, I shared what he said. And I responded to him. I mean, this has got to stop. This narrative has got to stop. Anytime a quote-unquote small market team gets a superstar, I'm not talking like a good player, a guy that's going to come in, he's going to average 21 a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He'll be an all-star, but never that quite an MVP caliber player. I'm talking about an actual superstar. A guy that's won a couple of MVPs in Giannis, a guy who's won a Defensive Player of the Year award, a multi-time All-Star, multi-time first-team NBA, a most improved player. I'm talking about a cornerstone and a possible all-time great player when it's all said and done. He's spoken amongst all the greats. Anytime a quote-unquote small market team is fortunate enough to draft a talent like that, for some reason, you notice the national media trying to push them to one of the more nationally known teams in a big market because they feel like they've got the most to offer and that's where they should be, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just gets tiring. You give all of these other teams in the bigger markets all this time to, oh, well, they need to build around them and they just need to go and get the pieces and we need to give them time to do that. But if it's somebody in the small market, oh, the clock's ticking. All the clock's ticking. They're not going to win. If they don't win the next 6 months, they're not going to win. They're not going to win. They've got to leave. They got to go. You got to get everything you can for them. Will not afford the same time. Will not afford them to build. It takes time to win. It's a process. And just because a team is in a small market does not mean you have the right to take away that time and that process in favor of that superstar player going to a bigger market. Now, I know people are going to have PTSD over guys like Kevin Durant leaving. Oh, I love OKC, but then he goes to the Warriors. Is phenomenal with those guys, wins a couple of championships with those guys. I get it. But not everybody's a Kevin Durant that says, okay, well, I'm going to assess the situation and it's not the best situation for me, even though, you had that team on the ropes the year prior. And let's make this very clear. I don't really have a problem with what Kevin Durant did. He made the best decision for his career. Everybody wants to talk about, that's kind of a cop-out. You went to the team that beat you the year before and you were up, on them, 3-1 or whatever the case was. I don't have a problem with it. He was a free agent. It was his decision. His decision was to go to that team. Oh, well, he went to a 73-win team. No. That team was already done. That 73-win team was the year prior. He went to a team that was 0-0. And by the way, that 73-win team didn't win the NBA championship. LeBron James's Cleveland Cavaliers won the NBA championship that year. So just because you won 73 games doesn't mean a thing. But I'm going off on a tangent right now. Giannis is going to make the best decision for his career. Do I believe that is elsewhere? I do not. Giannis has never given me a reason to think otherwise, and he has not given anyone else a reason to think otherwise, including Stephen A. Smith and other national pundits that are out there trying to push this narrative that this superstar, this two-time MVP, the reigning defending National Basketball Association most valuable player in Giannis Antetokounmpo, he does not need to leave. It is on John Horst, Bucks' general manager. It is on ownership, Lasry and Edens and Deanon, all those guys, to use all available resources to build this team into championship caliber, get a coaching staff that's going to continue to develop players so they perform in the playoffs and win a championship. It takes time. It takes time. Jordan wasn't winning championships off the bat. It took time. It took players. It took the right coach. It took the right GM. It was a process. Milwaukee should be afforded that same time, and it should be afforded to go through that same process. He's 25 years old. He's got a lot of basketball left in him, Lord permitting. And we'll go into a deeper dive on this on a special episode of Toss next week. In the 5-year history, I've never, ever had a guest on this show. I will have a guest for that show. That'll be next week. We'll go into a deep dive on the Bucks. But stop pushing this narrative that Giannis has to leave. He doesn't have to leave. Milwaukee just has to continue to build. Giannis has to be committed, continue to grow. This team has to be committed, continue to grow, continue to go up in the right way. And I think they'll do that. But please, just stop with this narrative that he needs to leave. Stop it. And that's the state of the state. The Packers got a mud hole stomped in them, 38-10. No longer undefeated, 4-1, but that's okay. You learn from it. You move on. The Texans are up next. Giannis ain't going anywhere. The Bucks are going to have to learn. They're going to have to grow, make the right transactions, and go through the process to win an NBA championship. And I think they'll do that. Let's head over to the toss sweep. Toss Sweep brought to you by the good folks at TossNationMedia.com. Toss Nation Media, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Y'all caught me clearing my throat on that one. I told y'all, you get it real, you get it live, you get it raw right here on Toss. What's recorded is what you get. Real life over here. So the World Series is happening. And the Tampa Bay Rays winning the AL pennant. Congratulations to them. The Los Angeles Dodgers winning the NL pennant. Both of those went game sevens, and they were pretty exciting. You feel for the Atlanta Braves, man. They blew another lead. Another lead. That stings. But that's a young squad, a really young, good squad. They will be back. I have no doubt about that. But you got the Rays and the Dodgers, and they're currently in game one as we record this program. At last check, the Dodgers were up 8-1. It was a 2-1 game, a pitcher's duel. Clayton Kershaw starting for the Dodgers. And I think this is the year the Dodgers get it done. I think this is the year they finally get it done. They've been so close for the past 4 or 5 seasons. Ownership, which includes Magic Johnson, has put in a lot of money into this roster. I think Clayton Kershaw makes as much, if not more, in one season than the entire Tampa Bay Rays squad. Just crazy money being thrown into the Dodgers, but they've invested it to make them a viable threat every single year, and now they've broken through to the World Series again. And I think they really have a shot with that lineup with Bellinger and Seager and Turner. And with that pitching, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, again, who's starting tonight. You'll see Walker Buehler he'll probably be in game 3 or game 4. They have a chance to wrap it up. But I think they do it. And that's no disrespect to the Rays. The Rays remind me of the Florida Marlins. Now, the Florida Marlins made the playoffs this season. Typically, whenever they made the playoffs, they went to and won the World Series. That's been twice. So they made the playoffs twice. This is the 3rd time they made it, but they made the playoffs twice before that and won the World Series both times. It was an amazing stat that they had, but they remind me of that squad and the fact that nobody expects a lot out of them. Like, yeah, okay, you guys played well enough to make the postseason, but how good are you really? And they have just been playing some really good, scrappy baseball. Some really good, scrappy. The biggest name coming out of that is Randy Arozarena, who's having a phenomenal postseason, having a lot of fun. That whole Rays squad is having a lot of fun. Nobody expected them to be here. Nobody expected them to run through the AL like that. And they did. So they're just a scrappy squad. They find ways to win. They pitch well. They play good defense. They get some timely hitting. That's the type of scrappiness that keeps you around and keeps you within series. And as long as you can do that, you can win them. And they've done that to this point. But now they're going up against a juggernaut. You know, you're talking about a juggernaut in the Los Angeles Dodgers that have the thump in the lineup and the pitching to shut you down, especially at the back end with Kenley Jansen. So I think this is the season. This is the year the Dodgers finally break through and get it done. Sorry, Tampa Bay, don't hate me. It's got nothing to do with y'all trouncing the Packers this past Sunday. It's just my observations of the two teams and the way they've been playing, and especially the way they've been playing tonight. I think there's going to be a little bit more of that. It won't be a sweep. You guys are going to get a game, maybe 2. But I think the Dodgers will win the World Series this season. But we'll see. The first quarter of the NFL season is over. Most teams have played 5 games now. Some have played 6. And we got to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Or maybe the good, the surprises, and the ugly. Let's start with the undefeateds. Packers were a part of that, but they are no longer. Seattle, still undefeated. They're 5-0. Playing very well. Russell Wilson, he might just win his first NFL MVP this season. They're playing some really good ball, but they're in probably the toughest division in all of football, the NFC West. Seattle is good. San Francisco is good. Even with their missing pieces on defense, and now they're finally starting to get some pieces back on offense. Deebo Samuel is playing himself back into shape after missing with a foot injury. They lost Raheem Mostert for a few weeks. But they're starting, Jimmy Garoppolo's coming back from injury. He's playing himself back. So, they're playing pretty well. The Rams, stout defensively, they can still put some points up on the board. Don't sleep on their offense. They can still go out there and put some points up on the board too. Sean McVay still has that good offensive brain. He ain't like an Adam Gase out in New York with the Jets that's just touted as this offensive genius, and he is just absolutely trash juice. That's not Sean McVay. And then you have Arizona, which we'll get to them a little bit later in the segment. They're going to make that division tough too. Let's get to some surprises, and Arizona is one of those surprises. Second year in that offense for Kyler Murray. You add a receiver the caliber of DeAndre Hopkins. You have Mr. Reliable, Mr. going to be first ballot Hall of Famer Larry Fitzgerald still going out there and producing. Kenyon Drake at running back with that breakaway speed, that strength, and a really good defense that is missing Chandler Jones now, who's out for the season. But they played well enough on Monday Night Football. But then again, you're going up against a Dallas team, and we'll get to them and the rest of that division in a second. But they're going to make things tough in that division too. That's going to be a fight. That's going to be a real fight. I can't call who's going to come out of there. Like, yeah, right now Seattle's undefeated, but they still got to play the Rams, and they still got to play the Niners. They still got to play Arizona. That's a really tough division, but Arizona's definitely a surprise right now where they are currently in the season. Cleveland, even though they kind of not look that great on offense at times, they're still in the thick of things in AFC North. But they've got to get more consistent play. But I'm surprised that they're hanging around right now in that division. Let's go to other undefeateds. I know we're talking surprises, but let's go to other undefeateds. Let's go Tennessee. I know I'm jumping around here. We're going back to the undefeateds right now. But Tennessee, Derrick Henry pretty much powering that offense. And that's saying something because Ryan Tannehill is playing really well. And he played really well last season too. You see what happens when you get away from Adam Gase? Guys tend to get better. Look at Robbie Anderson out in Carolina. A guy that was just touted as a deep threat, but now he's running the whole route tree. I mean, it's amazing when you get players with coaches who know what the hell they're doing. It's just simply amazing. So Tennessee's playing really good ball on both sides. Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin just continuing to do a stellar job in Pittsburgh. You got to like what Pittsburgh's philosophy is. Like, hey, we're going to have ebbs and flows. We got to let our coach get through it. And if they show signs that they're not going to get through it and this is going to be prolonged, then we'll make a change. But they typically stick with their head coaches long term and let them go through that process of building up a program, sustaining that program, and then rebuilding it and sustaining it again. And Tomlin is doing just that. Pittsburgh's been playing some really good ball. Let's get back to some surprises. We talked about Arizona. We talked about Cleveland. Miami is currently 3-3. which is good for second in the AFC East. Currently first, Buffalo, who just lost to Kansas City, the defending world champions. They're at 4-2. Miami's at 3-3. Ryan Fitzpatrick has not been Fitztragic this season, but yet they felt the need to make the change to Tua Tagovailoa, their rookie quarterback, as their starting quarterback for the remainder of the season. I wrote about this on the Toss Facebook page. Again, facebook.com/T on Sports Show. Ryan Fitzpatrick has not been playing terribly this season. He's been actually pretty good. He's been pretty decent. You're 3-3. You're just a game out of first place. Yes, in the AFC East. Who would have thought that the Patriots would be under 500 at this point? Now, it's still Bill Belichick. It's still the Patriots. You got Cam Newton in there. They got a hell of a running game. You got to expect them to still be a factor within this division. They're not that far out of it. And then you got the Jets down there that are just absolute hot garbage on the summer day. But you're only a game out of first. You're 3-3. You're at 500, and you make the change to a rookie quarterback. Now, look, I get it. You're excited about Tua. You're excited about what he can bring to the table. He finally got his first game action this past week, and he completes a couple of short passes, and that's enough for you to make that decision that he's going to be the starting quarterback for the remainder of the year. Look, we're all pulling for Tua. We all want him to go out there and perform well. We want the Dolphins to go out there and perform well. We want them to be a factor in this. But you're wondering if you're rushing this just a tiny bit. Again, I hope this works out. I think Tua is going to be a great quarterback. I'm hoping for nothing but health and longevity for him and much, much success. But this might be pulling the trigger a little bit too quickly. You have an experienced guy in Ryan Fitzpatrick who has not played you out of games. He's been winning you games. He's been good. And you go to the rookie who really hasn't shown you anything. That's definitely a surprise. I'll tell you that much. So hopefully that works out for him. But that's a head scratcher on that one. Now let's get to the awful. Now, we don't need to sit here and talk about the Jets. We already mentioned them. They're 0-6. They're trash. We already mentioned the Vikings. We don't need to talk about them. They're 1-5. They're trash. But you know who is really trash? The entire NFC least, a.k.a. the NFC East. When divisions like this are just god-awful, you have people saying, oh, well, playoffs should be reseeded, and there's no reason that an 11-5 wildcard team should be going on the road to play a 7-9 squad that won the division. No, you win the division, you deserve a home game, period. You should not penalize that team because the entire division is terrible, okay? Like, it's not like every division is always horrible every single year. This is just one of those weird years, and we're still early. But this is one of those weird years where this is going to be just an absolute meager, and that's being nice, division. You're talking about the Dallas Cowboys, who lost Dak Prescott for the entire season due to a broken ankle, being the leaders of this division at 2-3. Then you got Philadelphia, who's 1-4-1. That tie game could come into play here at the end of the season. Then you got the two other squads, and they've only got one win apiece as well. Talk about the Giants. Talk about the Washington football team. I mean, just looking at the standings and seeing that division makes my stomach hurt. It's just how meager that division truly is. It's like, does anybody and then for all the talk that's now coming out from a quote unquote unnamed player about how McCarthy and his coaches are just not really good at their jobs and, this, that, and the other stuff that we've heard here in Green Bay in his last few seasons as a Packers head coach. For all that talk about them not being great at their jobs, they still have them in first place. That's how terrible this division is. You had disarray with the Dallas Cowboys. They got mollywopped on Monday Night Football. They got an unnamed player coming out talking mess about the head coach already. We're not even halfway into the season, and yet they're still in first place in this division. If anything, I can't even add anything on top of that. There's no way to close that out. There's no cherry to add to that. That is just really terrible, terrible, terrible football being played by every single one of those teams in that division, and yet they all still have a chance to win it. Now, my question is, are they going to win it with 5 games? Are they going to win it with 6 games? Is it going to be another 7-9 situation like the Seattle Seahawks back in, I believe, 2010? At least they went on to win a playoff game. I mean, it is just, that division is just, it's literally laughable. It's like this kind of laugh. It's literally laughable. I mean, it's laughable. I mean, that's essentially what the division is. It's just a big joke. It's a bunch of laughter. I mean, I can't believe that somebody's going to win that division, and it's probably going to be at under 500. I mean, look at these teams. Who do you think is actually going to beat somebody? I mean, if anything, you might give. I mean, you would like to say you would give Mike McCarthy, who's won a Super Bowl, who has been a successful head ball coach in this league, a fighting chance, but he lost his franchise quarterback. You got Andy Dalton in there. Now, Andy Dalton, I mean, the guy he's a really good backup. But he's no Dak Prescott. But, I mean, they've got one of the best receiving cores in all of football and one of the best running backs in all of football. But that line has lost a lot, and that ain't the same. And that defense really ain't playing that well. You're down in Philadelphia. I mean, you got Doug Peterson, who's won a Super Bowl. Carson Wentz. Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. I mean, you got some playmakers. I mean, Zach Ertz. I mean, you got some playmakers down there. Pretty decent defense, even though you wouldn't be able to tell that this season. I mean, you would want to put your faith in those two teams, but it's like, look at the results of their first 5 to 6 weeks, and somebody's going to win that division. So if you want to talk about awful, if you want to talk about truly awful, the NFC East / NFC least, I'm going to be keeping my eye on that division because that is just awful. Awful, awful, awful. And laughable. I mean, what a joke. Hopefully it gets better. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me this week. This is episode 53. Nutrition on Sports Show. Toss. Y'all know where to find me on social media. At the20double on Twitter and Instagram. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. And of course, TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. A Bucks episode, special episode of Toss next week. Our first guest ever on Toss in the 5 years of the show. I'm excited for it. We're going to deep dive into the Milwaukee Bucks, figure out what the hell happened and where the hell did we go. But until then, like I said before, Time for me to get on up out of here. T-Squared Tristan Thomas reminding you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.